Hi, everyone, and welcome. Thanks for joining us today. My name is John. I'm the host for today's session entitled Deploy with Confidence, How AI Helps Teams Move Faster and Fix Smarter. We're really glad to have you here. Before we turn things over to Matt and before I can start speaking, I just wanted to go through some housekeeping notes before we begin. So don't worry, you are in the right place. This is our webinar series that we do all the time. You'll find more information about our webinars that we host at octopus.com/webinars. You can see we're hosting one here today. We will be hosting one coming up on August 12th. We'll be joined by Phil Hollerman of GitHub. He'll be joining our field CTO, Bob Walker, talking about fast and compliant CI/CD pipelines in the financial industry. So make sure to register for that. So we're really glad to have you here for today's session. If you happen to catch anything that you missed, or you missed something, you want to see it again, you can check out our YouTube channel. As the kids say, like and subscribe. You'll find us at /OctopusDeploy up on YouTube. A recording of today's session will be there, and you'll be able to watch that and share with your friends. As you can see, we're live right now on social media. Let us know where you're joining from through the comments, wherever you're joining us from. And then finally, and lastly and not least, we will be talking today about Octopus AI Assistant. I'm going to let Matt do the talking about this, but today you're going to get a practical behind-the-scenes look at all the new things that are built into the Octopus AI Assistant. It's how we're basically trying to change the way teams deploy software. So in this session, you're going to see how you can build deployment projects with a few simple inputs. We're going to basically see how we can review failed deployments and explain what went wrong. We're going to show you how Octopus AI Assistant can give you clear and actionable suggestions on how to help you fix issues fast and help teams adopt best practices with less friction. So if you're imagining complex environments, growing teams, or just want to move a little faster with fewer headaches, this session is for you. With that being said, let's move on to our speaker, who is Matt Casperson. He's the Principal Solutions Engineer here at Octopus Deploy. Matt's helped teams around the world tackle tough deployment pipeline problems, and he's been instrumental in shaping how the AI assistant works, and he's here to show you exactly how it works and how to get started. Matt, over to you.
All right, thank you for that introduction, John. And so, yeah, we're going to get a live demonstration of the new AI assistant. But before I jump into that, I thought I'd give a little bit of a background as to how some of this functionality came about. And so in a previous life, I was actually a technical writer. We used to document technical products, using a format called DocBook. It was a very verbose XML-based markup format, but the one thing it had going for it was it had very rich semantics for user interface interaction. So it'd be things like, click file, click new, type in something into the text box, click OK, that kind of step-by-step instruction that you would often have to find and follow in technical documentation. And the end result of this was often pages and pages of documentation that was just listing the exact interactions you had to take with a user interface. And I remember thinking at the time, if we can document this in such a detailed and repeatable manner, why can't it be automated? Why do we have to force people to have their application open and the documentation open and just translate those instructions one by one into their application in order to achieve fairly entry-level and baseline functionality in the tools that we were documenting? And so that was a big part of the inspiration for the first feature that we're going to see in the Octopus AI Assistant, which is prompt-based project creation. So I have here a fairly empty Octopus space, and the AI assistant is now exposed here through that little that little button down in the bottom right-hand corner. And so I'm going to start this demo with this prompt here, which says create a Kubernetes LLM project called Chatbot LLM. And so what's going to happen here is that this prompt is going to be matched to a template in the backend system. This is a template that we've built by hand to represent some of those best practices that we think people will benefit from when they develop and build deployment processes. And that template is going to be used as the base, and then whatever customizations that we have as part of that prompt will be applied. So in this case, there's very little customization. We're really just changing the name of the project to Chatbot LLM. And what you saw there was a list of the OpenTofu changes that will be applied to this space as a result of this prompt. So I went ahead and approved those changes, and what we'll see is that our sample project is going to be created. So I'll just refresh the front page here, and we can see that we do have now a project created in our Octopus instance. And it's not a trivial project either, right? There is quite a bit going on here. So we do have a number of different steps in this deployment process. I'll actually kick off a release and just leave that running in the background just to show you that this does actually work. So we are actually consuming real packages from real feeds and real files from real Git repos. And all of this was created with one prompt. But if we return back to the deployment process, we can see here the fact that we have recreated a fairly complex project that really embeds those best practices that we've seen teams adopt over time and that we've seen teams be successful with. And so the nice thing about this is we've really reached that point where documentation is implementation. There's no longer any need to manually recreate every individual file click or every individual button click in order to recreate these simple projects. You can get to this point of having a functional and reasonably complete project in just a few minutes by copying and pasting a fairly simple prompt. The other thing you'll notice here is that you are getting a year 5 project on day 1. So you're really getting the benefit of all those little tips and tweaks that we've seen customers be successful with over the years at Octopus. And we've built that into the base template and given it to you as the baseline that you can use for your own projects going forward. And so the nice thing about this is it really reduces the time it takes to see the value in a platform like Octopus. Whereas building up a project from scratch previously would have been a lot of that, click file new, add new step, set the name of the project, et cetera, et cetera. It would have been at least minutes, quite often it's tens of minutes in order to get something up and running. We're now doing this with a simple prompt. So I'm going to return back to the dashboard. We can see that deployment is going to go ahead. It will take a little while, but we'll just leave that one running in the background. I'm going to go ahead and create a second project. And this one is going to have a few more customizations. Again, we're changing the name, but now we're going to set a Kubernetes memory request here to 2 gigabytes. We're also going to modify the description of the project. So I'll go ahead and apply that one. And so what I want to demonstrate here is that when the prompt is fairly simple, when there's very little customization going on, the end result will be consistent by default. So the project that you see here is basically a one-to-one mapping to the template that we built in the back end. But we do have the flexibility when required. So we can make those changes, those little customizations and tweaks to the base template. And all of this is really thanks to the ability of LLMs to understand the intention of these prompts and use the base knowledge that they've been trained with over the years in platforms like Kubernetes and the knowledge that we've built in to help it understand Octopus deployment processes. So I want to show you those customizations that have taken place. So here we have the change that edited the description of the project. And if I go into the process here, we can see the change for the memory request as well. So I'll just expand this, and if we scroll down, that setting right down there, that's the change that was made as part of that prompt that asked to set the memory request. And so something to notice here is that we described these changes at a very high level. So I didn't have to be overly prescriptive in how that change was applied. And that's quite a contrast to more traditional imperative-based approaches, right? So you can imagine you're trying to build up a template project in something like Terraform. In order to expose the memory request as a configurable field, you would have to identify the step where that configuration takes place. And then you have to identify the property in the step where that configuration takes place. And because the setting is actually in a YAML document, you'd have to parse or somehow interpret this compound YAML document. And then all the way down the bottom, deeply nested in the tree of YAML settings here, you'd have to expose this particular property for customization. It's definitely doable, but you can imagine as the number of customizations that you need to make to these projects increases, it really becomes impractical to try and preempt every little customization that anyone could ever want. However, with LLMs and the AI assistant, we can just describe these customizations in natural language, and the understanding that an LLM has of the deployment process and Kubernetes YAML means that the correct setting is put in the correct place with just a very high-level description of the change. So I'm going to go ahead and create a release of this version, or sorry, this project here. Return to the dashboard. So this project has gone ahead and completed. I'll just jump in quickly and show you some of the nice things that you do get with this particular template. So we do have real tests here. So I have set up a Kubernetes cluster in the background. The AI assistant today is very focused on the setup of an Octopus instance itself. You will still have to link it in, we'll still have to define and link up the external resources like clusters. So that was something that I did prior to this demo. But we do have real tests. So this is a real smoke test. And as we can see, we are really testing a LLM endpoint that we deployed to a real Kubernetes cluster. We've also done things like security scanning. So this is scanning an SBOM file. If I just zoom out a little bit, we'll get that nice view of the table. And what we can see is that we're actually doing a real live scan of an SBOM file that was embedded in the Docker image. And these are the kind of processes that we see teams evolve into as they scale up their usage of Octopus, and they really implement a lot of those more advanced DevOps practices in terms of testing and security testing. But all of that was included in the base template that we've recreated with these prompts. And this is something that people can iterate on very quickly and easily now. But if we return back to our projects, and we can see, the deployment here has failed. So let me jump in and take a look at the task log, and we can try and work out what's going on. So look, I've done more than my fair share of debugging Kubernetes deployments, and even I had to look twice at this particular error message, like unable to convert unstructured objects, a regular expression with half the alphabet. Like what does this even mean? I don't know. And certainly you'd have to be a very, very comfortable with Kubernetes to be able to read an error like that and intrinsically understand what is going on. So when I first encountered this error, I did what anyone else would do and copy and pasted it into ChatGPT. But that really leads us to the second scenario that we want to unlock with the AI assistant, which is deployment failure analyzer. So I'm going to take this failed deployment. I'm going to open up my prompt here, and I'm going to open up this suggested prompt here. And as you can see, it says, help me understand why the deployment failed. If it didn't fail, say so, but otherwise provide some suggestions for resolving the issue. And so what's happening in the background here is that all the configuration of this project, so that is the steps and the actual content of those steps, so that's going to include things like the YAML that we tried to deploy to the Kubernetes cluster, as well as the deployment logs. They're all bundled up, and they're all being sent off to an LLM along with that prompt. And the end result is that we get a suggestion on what to do in order to resolve this issue. So we can see here that the cause of the problem is actually that this format is incorrect. GB, as it turns out, is not the correct way to reference 2 gigabytes. We really have to do something like 2GI or 2G. Indeed, we can even see that the AI has gone further and told us exactly where in that YAML that change needs to take place. And this is because all that context has been bundled up automatically and sent off to the LLM, and we don't have to do any of that copy and paste. It is really just handled for us automatically. So the nice thing about this feature is that it really reduces that feedback loop. So as a developer who has encountered a failed deployment, I can really get the assistance that I need without jumping out to another tool and trying to copy and paste the YAML configuration and the deployment logs and making sure that it's all set up properly in the ChatGPT or even in Google. All of that's handled for me. I just open the assistant, ask it to resolve the issue, and I can often get a very comprehensive and detailed answer. So this, I've often heard LLMs being referred to as your colleague in the cloud, right? That really knowledgeable and infinitely patient colleague who can answer all your questions and help you get back up and running. And that's really what we're doing here, is putting a DevOps expert in the seat next to you and giving you the ability to call on them really with the click of a button. But what happens if the answer that's been given here isn't correct, or it's not enough, or it doesn't work, right? I have to take the next step of potentially escalating this to an internal support team. What do I do as a new developer? Who am I talking to? What is the process that I need to follow? An LLM is never going to tell you that. Like they're never going to know your internal process and those really bespoke business processes that are specific to your team or your company. So what we have in order to facilitate that scenario is the ability to enrich those prompts with custom instructions. So to do that, I'm going to jump into a library variable set. And we have two variables that have been set up here. They're currently disabled, but once you set up variables with this structure, and the structure of these variables is documented, so you can just copy and paste them from the documentation. But once you have these variables, you can then start injecting custom instructions into your prompts. So the prompt here, this is actually just the same prompt that we ran before. So there's nothing special there. The real magic comes from this system prompt. And so what we're doing here is injecting that business knowledge into the support answer that you'll get as part of the AI assistant. So what we can see here is that the instruction is, if the logs indicate that the Kubernetes YAML is invalid, and that is true, get the Slack support channel from the project description and include the instructions to run this particular workflow as a way of escalating this problem to the internal support team. So I'm going to return back to my failed deployment. At this point, we now have this team prompt here. The team prompt really just means an internally defined and customized prompt. So I'm going to click that. The same process is happening. We're still collecting all that information and sending it off to the LLM. But what we will see in the result is that we have some additional uncustomized instructions that are really specific to this local team or your particular local company. And the real benefit here, if we scroll down, so we can see these instructions here. This really captures what the next step is, and this is very unique to my particular company. And so if an LLM is your colleague in the cloud, then this ability to embed custom instructions really turns it into your bureaucrat in the cloud, right? I'd say that only half jokingly, because a day wasted trying to solve a technical problem is the same as a day wasted with a ticket bouncing around internally. I think a lot of us have worked at those big enterprises where, the reality is you have to follow the process, and if you don't, your tickets will just be redirected and put on the end of a queue, and you may find you waste a day or two if you don't follow the correct process. But often the correct process is very hard to know. It's just one of those things you kind of just have to know, or you have to be able to ask someone who knows. What we can do here is really distribute that knowledge, those business processes or those custom support instructions through the AI assistant. And what this means is that the end user gets the information that they need when they need it. Platform teams can scale up their processes and distribute the required information out to teams without having to refer them back to some Confluence page or a wiki or run internal training sessions. This information is really just there and ready to go for those people who need it. But again, the other thing to notice is that this would have been very hard to do in a more imperative fashion, right? So if we go back and look at those custom instructions, you can imagine what it would have taken to have instructions like this executed with regular code. It would have been a lot of regular expression or keyword matching. You would have had to make API calls to scrape the project description and then try and parse it out to find a Slack channel. It's a non-trivial amount of work in order to implement what was just a single sentence that anyone could have written and anyone can read and update over time when we pass these instructions to an LLM. And so I think that's really important, right? Because this is now unlocking capability that simply wasn't available, or certainly wasn't reliable to be able to implement it by platform teams in the past. So the third scenario that we want to unlock with the AI assistant is a best practice advisor. So what I'm going to do to demonstrate that is create a new project. A script project here just references a very simple template project that basically prints hello world. And we're going to add a variable to that project called password. And so one of the challenges that we see with teams as they scale up their usage of Octopus, so they add more projects or they add more people to be using the platform, is that the ability to do that without friction really relies on just a constant discipline to make sure that all the little things are handled in that space. So the ability to scale and the ability to use Octopus at scale often just comes down to doing little things constantly over time. But what are those little things? This is often the challenge that DevOps teams face. So this is my sample project here, and we can see that variable was created. And if we jump into the AI assistant again, we can see some of these best practices being surfaced through the suggested prompts. So here's one here: find unused variables to help the maintainability of a project. I mean, unused variables just become a drag really on teams who try to manage projects. Can I delete them? Do they need to be updated? If there's a password or an API key, does it need to be rotated? A lot of these questions are much easier to answer if you know that the variables are actually used. And so in this case, that password variable is not used. So there are edge cases that we can't actually detect when we're trying to find used or unused passwords. So you can imagine a package that has a text file that references this variable through a template that exists off the system. We don't know that package exists. We can't know that it won't exist in the future. So there are edge cases, and you can't just go in and start deleting things that appear to be unused. But if you refer to the documentation, there is a process that's outlined there that allows people to determine if variables are actually unused and clean them up. So the other thing we can do is look at the project variables here and determine things like, do we have any variables that look like plain text passwords? I mean, leaking passwords is just a common bugbear of DevOps teams. And this would, again, be very hard to understand through more traditional scripting means. Again, you can imagine what it takes to try and identify a leaked password. It might be keyword matching on the word password. You might be looking for random strings of characters as a way of identifying what a password might be. But with LLMs, it's really quite easy. We just ask the question. And what we can see here is that it has correctly identified, say, one of these variables that looks like a plain text password. So this may not look impressive when you only have three variables in your project, but if you have 100, this kind of functionality really starts to add value to your workflows. So the other thing we can do is look for duplicate variables. So as you clone or copy and paste projects, quite often variables will be cloned and copied and pasted between them. So in this case, because these two projects here were created from the same template, we can see that they are sharing certain variables. In this case, I wouldn't actually move these variables out into library variable sets, but you can get a sense of the kind of next step that someone might be able to take as they determine or as they discover those duplicate variables across projects in this space. And again, all of this is really just to aid in that discipline of creating a space that is maintainable and can be scaled as teams grow and as projects grow. So the other thing you can do is like find unused projects. So again, you can imagine maybe there's projects that were spun up for a very short one-off proof of concept. They're no longer used. They haven't been used in quite some time. And you may benefit from just being able to disable those projects and remove them from your license count. Again, today with the AI assistant, very easy to be able to determine those kind of practical next steps. And so what we want to give people through this best practice advisor is really strong opinions on best practices and implementation at scale. And so to really empower those DevOps engineers and managers to create and maintain an Octopus instance that's going to grow with them rather than become a point of friction at some point, as they start adding people and people on projects. So those are the three scenarios that we really wanted to unlock, specific scenarios that we wanted to unlock with the AI assistant. So that was the project creation, through prompt-based project creation. So you saw that with the creation of these projects here. It's that failure support analyzer. So it really just bypasses the need to copy and paste out to something like ChatGPT. And you also get that tier 0 support as you start embedding more of your bespoke business knowledge into those custom system prompts, really functioning as that first level of help desk and potentially offloading that process from people who are better focused on more complex problems back down into a self-service model that people can access through the AI assistant. And then we have that best practices advisor, which really just provides a bunch of handy little tips and tricks for people who need to be able to maintain and cultivate their Octopus instance as they grow. But I will say that one of the really exciting things about AI is that it has the ability to expose scenarios that people don't necessarily plan for. So if you go back, say, 20 years, when API first design was really starting to take hold, the reason why people adopted that architecture wasn't because building APIs and then building platforms on top of them was easier. They did it because it allowed those platforms to move beyond the kind of prescribed functions that people had in mind, right? People could evolve them and extend them in unanticipated ways, but very valuable ways. And I think API first design has just become the default these days for that very reason. And it's easy to take that for granted, but I think a lot of the innovation that you see in this space is really around the fact that API first design is just now a standard practice. And I really see that exposing platforms to AI is a similar paradigm shift that has the potential to democratize innovations in ways that we can't really begin to predict or imagine at this point. So as an example, I want to show you kind of a workflow that really just evolved from the ability or from the fact that we have exposed the Octopus configuration to an LLM. And so that's this one here. So this is a script really that measures the compliance of a project based on a couple of custom rules. So I won't go through this one by one, but what you can see really here is a pattern of rules of must-haves. If you have it, you're green, otherwise you're red. And there's a couple of nice-to-haves. So if you have it, again, you're green, otherwise you're yellow. But what we can take away from this is that it's very easy to write this kind of report. Anyone can write it, really, at the end of the day. And it's easy to read, and it's easy to maintain over time. But because documentation is now implementation, it's also easy to execute. So I jump into my project here and paste that prompt into the AI assistant. We're going to get a report on the compliance of this project based on those rules. And this is not a scenario that we coded for. We didn't specifically add any functionality to support this particular use case. It really just evolves from the fact that we have now exposed AI to the data held in our Octopus instance. And so here we can see the overall report is yellow. So we have missed a couple of those nice to haves, but we haven't missed any of the critical ones. So we can say, look, this project, not great, but not too bad. Probably not something to worry about. The script one, though, being just a single step here, is definitely not going to pass. So we'll rerun that prompt, and we'll get the compliance report on that, and we'll see that it should come up as a red result. And there we go, failure. This project here definitely doesn't comply with our standards. But again, you can imagine what it would take to write this in a more imperative manner. So we haven't been very prescriptive in what we mean when we say things like it has to have security scanning, or it has to have some sort of test as part of the deployment. We've left it entirely up to the LLM to determine what that means, right? It's a little bit subjective, but this is the beauty of LLMs. You can really start at high level descriptions, and then as you need to refine that prompt, you can do so. But we haven't had to say what kind of test it is. Is it curl doing a smoke test? Is it an API test, or is it an end-to-end browser test? We leave those details up to the developers of the projects. Our concern here is that the projects have implemented some kind of testing as part of the deployment. If you have implemented testing, we say, great, you've met our expectations. If you haven't, then you may end up with a red dot here. So it's a very high-level description. Again, very easy to read and write and maintain, and frankly, kind of impossible to do in a more imperative manner without being very specific about what you're trying to check. And so this is a very nice kind of feature that just really evolved out of the fact that we have now exposed the configuration of an Octopus instance to an LLM. But I can already hear people saying, that's great, but I don't want to copy and paste a prompt over and over into this little text box here. How do I make it more repeatable? And so to do that, we have a step. So I'm going to make a runbook called compliance, and we're going to add a step to the process. So we will see this this step here, prompt AI. So there are a few changes that we need to make in order to make the prompt repeatable. Let's run that on the Ubuntu worker. Now, so this is the prompt here. I have made one change, which is to explicitly call out which project and which space we're working with. The context of the project and space is inferred when you use the AI assistant. When you use the step, you have to be explicit. But otherwise, the prompt is the same. It's just copy and paste. The other thing we have to do here is provide an API key. Again, we've just inherited the credentials of the currently logged in user through the AI assistant. But when we run this as a step, we have to provide some credentials. So we've got to go ahead and run that as part of a runbook. And what we will see is that we get much the same result as we did previously with that prompt through the AI assistant. And so this is a way that you can further automate and expose the configuration of your Octopus instance to automated processes and use them as part of DevOps workflows. And so that's I think that's really powerful and that's really exciting. And so while we have really focused on those 3 scenarios that we've called out in our roadmap, to be honest, I think the most exciting things that are going to come out of this AI assistant are the things we haven't anticipated. And so that's really going to be up to everyone watching this webinar today, I think, to dream up how you can use this new integration between Octopus and the LLM that is exposed by the AI assistant. So how do you get your hands on this? So we have the documentation here about the AI assistant. This will include instructions on how to set up the AI assistant. If you are on an Octopus Cloud instance, you have everything you need to do. There's no further configuration required. If you have an on-prem instance, we do still support that. However, you will need to have a public host name that is accessible to an external service. And there is an IP address that you'll have to allow through your firewall as well in order to allow this, this assistant to work. The other thing we have is a cookbook. And so this is where we really want to collect and share those really cool prompts that do neat things with the AI assistant. Because look, it really is a text box and you can type literally anything into it. There are going to be a handful of prompts that work really well. There's going to be a whole bunch that don't work. That's just kind of the nature of exposing a text box in which you can enter literally anything. So we want to give people, a heads up and a couple of prompts that they can use as a way of getting started through that cookbook. So with that, I have concluded that demo, and I may hand back to John. Oh, I think you muted, John.
Rookie mistake. I'm so sorry. There's no LLM for your audio system, I guess. Sorry about that. Thanks a lot, Matt. That was a great demo. Really great to see. We have tons of questions. I have tons of questions that I would like to ask. So one of the things that I saw in the demo, you were basically showcasing the fact that this is an integration within Octopus. So this runs kind of in line with that. It's available as a Chrome extension. Is that right?
Yeah, so that's right. So this the AI assistant here really is an external tool that sits outside of Octopus. So all the LLM and the services themselves all sit out in Azure as Azure Functions. What you see here, the overlay, the prompt here is actually delivered by a Chrome extension. So that's a little dot here. And the reason why we did that is it allowed us to move quickly. Everything you've seen here hasn't required any modification of the Octopus code base. We've simply used the data exposed by the API and linked that up with the LLM. So yeah, the installation process here documented will give you a link off to the Chrome extension that you can install in order to get started.
Porter here asks, no Firefox extension or version? So there you go.
Look, sadly, no, I am a fan of Firefox. But market share is what it is. So yes. Chrome was what we targeted.
Just to answer some of the questions here. So Porter also asked, is the recording of this webinar also available? Yes, it will be available on our YouTube channel. We have some other questions from the audience, but the other question I had is, and this is kind of helping setting the stage here, I noticed that it's somewhat contextual to the view that you're on. So depending upon where you are inside of Octopus, the AI assistant will operate differently. There's a context that's implied there. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. So these suggestions here are context aware. So on this main page, I get a couple of those best practices. Might get some common help style questions. What is an Octopus project? This is the kind of kind of question and answer that LLMs are really known for, and that ChatGPT really popularized. But yeah, definitely, as you dig into those different points in the user interface, those suggestions will change, and you will get different prompts, and also the context of where you are is also injected into the prompt as well. So if I'm in this page here, the LLM understands that I'm in this particular project, and if I go to the deployment, it understands that I'm looking at this particular deployment to this particular environment. So it is all context sensitive in that regard, and that really just makes it easy. People don't have to think too hard about typing out, give me support for the failed deployment for this project in this space, for this version to this environment. All of that's just kind of inferred from what you're looking at the particular point in time.
If you happen to have a question, feel free to use the comments section where you're joining us from on social media. Otherwise, you can use the Q&A pane if you're joining us via the in-app experience through StreamYard. We're talking here to Matt Casperson, who's one of the engineers who worked on this. Matt, so also, how do people get their hands on this? They go up to the Chrome web store and search for what?
Well, this is it. So this is the assistant. Grab the link from those docs, install in Chrome. That's it. That's all you need to do. Everything
Fantastic.
Else is taken care of.
Excellent stuff. And then in addition to that, the other question I was thinking of was, we haven't outlined, obviously, all the ways in which you can use this thing. There's going to be a lot of people who are going to paint outside the lines. There's going to be some cases where people are going to be worried about using the AI assistant, especially for some things like creation, operations, etc. Is there a way, are there any safeguards that I can make sure that I employ when running commands to make sure that I'm just show me what's possible as opposed to implementing something?
Yeah, so first thing to note is that because this extension basically lives outside of Octopus, it is bound by the RBAC controls of the API. So if you do just want to have a read-only view of the world and make sure that the extension can't do anything, you can't just log in as a user that only has read-only permissions. The other thing to note is that things like project creation don't modify anything that already exists. So you could imagine if I did go ahead and rerun a project that tried to recreate this project here, it would just say no changes to be made. So we have made a conscious decision at this point that we're not modifying anything that already exists. We will add new projects and feeds and accounts, but if you have those existing resources, they're not changed. But I would say, yeah, definitely if you want to kick the tires and just be certain that you won't be changing anything, just use the RBAC controls in Octopus as a way of really locking that down and restricting what the AI extension can do.
There's a question here from Tony who asks, do you feed the entire deployment process and package information to the LLM?
We do, yes. So basically what's going to happen behind the scenes is that this entire process is serialized down to HCL. And the reason why we did that is HCL is a really nice format for collecting complex relationships and multiple resources. So that compound document structure that is really just native to HCL means you can add and remove things to a single page of text. And text is what LLMs work off. So yeah, the process behind the scenes is serialize all this down to HCL, bundle that up with things like deployment logs, and then pipe that into a system prompt that is run alongside the prompt that you entered into the text box.
Tony also asks, is it possible to generate a report for audit purpose? For example, can you give me a list of Octo users in default space with team lifecycle role, user role, modified position, permission?
So yes, look, in future, there are a couple of aspects of the space that we don't serialize yet. Users and teams was one of them. Having said that, though, there's no reason why we can't do that. So even though your example there was like, teams or users that have a particular permission, perhaps another example here is give me projects that happen to deploy to Kubernetes. So this kind of just collect all the information, have the LLM distill it down and give you a report is definitely something that you can do through this AI assistant. Teams and users specifically, though, that is not something that we have today.
Got it. Another question from Tony. Tony's got all the questions today. Can you talk a little bit about the data privacy and security, compliance and regulatory risks and cost for this LLM?
Yeah, so look, it's a common question. I think one of the most obvious questions is what do you log? What do you collect? Are you training LLMs on our stuff? So the answer is, what do we log? We log the prompts. We don't log the response. We don't train LLMs based on your data. And we use the Azure OpenAI service, and they also have the guarantee that they won't be training their LLMs based on the prompts that you send to them. In terms of security, again, everything is controlled through the API RBAC controls. So because this project or this feature essentially sits outside of the API, you have very fine-grained control over what it can access and what it cannot. The cost today for the alpha is free, so there's no cost associated with that. That may change as we release this, as a final GA product. But today you can certainly jump in and use it for free. I would say a lot of those questions are going to be covered in things like the documentation here. Is my data used to train AI models? No. What is collected? Specifically, what is not? So we can't get sensitive values out of your Octopus instance, for example. That's a security feature built into the API. So the AI assistant just can't read passwords. It just doesn't work that way. So I'd say if you have any of those questions specifically, this FAQ is probably the first place to go.
Fantastic stuff. And again, if you have any questions, feel free to submit them to the comment pane of where you're joining us from. Just to remind folks, you can download this available from the Chrome web store. You'll find it there by searching for Octopus AI. If you're at all curious about some of the work that we're also doing, you can find this up on our roadmap, which is a very popular sort of site. I recommend it for everyone. This is at roadmap.octopus.com. And there you'll find the 3 individual capabilities that we mentioned here today: the best practices analyzer, the deployment failure analyzer, and the prompt-based project creation aspect. Obviously, this is subject to change. Early days here. Anything you wanted to mention here, Matt?
No, look, just thanks to everyone who joined the webinar. And as we said, it's probably the scenarios we haven't anticipated that will be the most interesting. So let us know. We have a Slack channel, a community Slack channel. And if you come across anything interesting or cool, things we didn't anticipate, feel free to share them. I think we're excited to see how people will use it.
I think it's probably obvious that some people are going to come in some really cool scenarios. I think I'm really looking forward to seeing what people come up with. Anyways, Matt, thanks a lot for the demo. Really cool. Go check out the Octopus AI Assistant today. It's available from the Chrome web store. Search for Octopus AI. Check it out. It's available as an alpha right now. Let us know what you think. Join this community Slack. Show us what you can do with the AI assistant. We're really curious to hear your feedback. Anyways, on behalf of Matt and myself, thank you to all of you for joining us today. Don't forget, this will be available as a recording up on our YouTube channel. You'll find that by searching for Octopus Deploy on YouTube. So there you go. The Octopus AI Assistant now available as an alpha. Well done. From all of us here to all of you, happy deployments, happy AI deployments going forward. And we will see you in the next one. Take care.